Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar news update video. This one is going to be about the New York Comic Con 20th anniversary Avatar panel that ended just a little bit ago. Straight away you can maybe tell just by the fact that I'm only doing a video and I'm not straight away jumping into a live stream that yes, nothing particularly huge happened at the panel. Ultimately disappointment is the word of the day, I would say, here in terms of the news and the big news that we were expecting. We didn't get any of it. There was no update on the Aang movie. There was no update on Seven Havens. We did technically get some news from this panel about a video game, which is probably the most exciting thing that's at least worth going into. And then one smaller announcement, which is just, hey, they finally finished all the stuff they announced back in February for the anniversary press release. That's cool to know. But I will start with this. The Avatarist, a fellow Avatar YouTuber, he did get to attend the panel. Seems like it was a bit of a crazy morning for him to get into the lines, get through the lines, get into the panel. But he got in there. And I think it's very interesting to know that his post here in the aftermath of the panel is this. A lot of disappointment leaving the panel. Seems most were expecting an Aang movie teaser. And we didn't get one. Now, interestingly, in the section right at the end of the panel when Brian was going through the sort of like Avatar news update kind of thing, like step by step, this is the stuff that's coming out. He mentions a lot of the books. He mentioned the 2 bits of news we will get into. And then when we get to the Avatar Studios section, they showed the logo for the movie. And what he said was that, you know, I can't show anything to you right now. And he's kind of like, I wanted to, but like they wouldn't let me. Basically, that's what he got across. The idea that basically high-ups above him, above Avatar Studios, wouldn't let them reveal anything about the movie at the panel. So there's the clear idea there of like Brian wanted to, because I think you get the sense that Avatar Studios had actually read the room correctly. That this was the right time for it. Everyone felt it was the right time for it, but they didn't. And this has created disappointment straight away. And I'm guessing there might have been some maybe deeper, maybe, I don't know if you could say it's a full out argument here, but of course the idea is what they probably asked if they could show something and we're just told no. Did they fight it? I'm not really sure. But either way, the idea is we didn't get what we properly expected. Now the question I think then becomes, okay, no Aang movie information here. When are they actually going to reveal anything about the movie? The reality of it is that, well, there's no real events for the rest of the year that, like, I think they're actually going to do anything at. Then you go into early 2026, and also January, February, March, there's not really any kind of places necessarily. CinemaCon is in April, but again, the problem there is it's not really a super public event. It's kind of become a little bit more news, kind of public-centric focus, but it's still fundamentally a behind-closed-doors event. But we'll get probably an update, some news. Will we get visuals from this? Probably not, unless they coincide some sort of social media announcement with the fact that they're revealing something at CinemaCon. So that could be something, could be not. Annecy Film Festival, where again we'd expect the movie to show up, is in June. And that's sort of the same situation as CinemaCon. We might hear bits and pieces, but are we going to get any reveals? Hard to say. So you then turn your attention to San Diego Comic-Con next year. But again, that's like late-ish July. And given that the movie's early October, that means like potentially they're doing the reveal, 2.5 months before the movie comes out? That seems awfully late for, you know, what might end up being like the first reveal of anything. Whereas like 2.5 months out, you're kind of thinking that's maybe more like trailer 2 time rather than trailer 1 time. And Paramount always do their marketing for, at least recently, for a lot of their movies quite late, like trailer 1 being maybe 4 months before release. But 2.5 months feels like it's cutting things kind of short. So there's a little bit of a mystery surrounding like what way is this all going to work out? Because is the trailer going to be the first thing we ever see for this movie? Do they want to really lead in a big way with showing off the animation? So they kind of didn't want the first look just to be a random image almost, a poster. They maybe want to lead with the animation, so they're waiting until later. I don't know. But I can't imagine we do that, where we get to a situation where the first thing we see for the movie is the trailer. It feels like we're going to get some sort of visual movie poster before then, well, when's that going to be released? Now, look, they can always choose any random day pretty much to launch it, and once they publicize it enough and kind of do their online marketing well, you can turn any day into a kind of hype day for Avatar. It doesn't have to always be associated with an event, but it does feel like, you missed a massive opportunity today with so many eyes on your panel, which was being live streamed, to create a super hype moment for the fandom, a kind of history moment for the fandom as well. The day the first Aang movie image got revealed and we were all watching on the live stream, Brian sort of even talked about that, the idea of like making these memorable moments at cons of the past, including New York Comic Con. So clearly he values that for the franchise, but it seems like maybe Paramount don't as much. So what is the plan? That's what you really get down to here. It just seems like the idea is that Paramount are just being, I guess, very cautious about this because it's a movie, it's not a series. Box office is going to be important, so they want to market this in their way, the right way. It's the relaunch of the franchise, effectively, that is going to have all these different projects, including Seven Havens and more, which they went over again. A slate, multiple projects in development. Not that he explained it all that much, but he highlighted that again, that there are many, many projects coming, and the movie will be the first of them. Paramount, I think, clearly just want this launch to be carefully done so that I guess their investment in Avatar works out really well. It's just all about what are they going to do? Now, a lot of pressure is going to be on when they eventually do decide to finally do some marketing and reveal it for the first time. Is it going to actually be cleverly planned out, timed to perfection? Or are we just going to be going like, guys, you probably could have done this back in October at New York Comic Con and had a much bigger reaction than this random thing you've done here. We'll see what way they do it. I think it's difficult because it's still so early in the marketing cycle on this movie to really freak out about the situation. Like, it's obviously, it comes across a little bit frustrating for Brian to be like, they wouldn't let me show something, and that just feels weird, like that, given how high up he is in Avatar Studios, that he's not allowed to show off kind of one of his projects. But it's obviously the big business people up top of Paramount making these decisions, not, someone high up in Avatar Studios, which is below Paramount, that sort of idea. So yeah, frustration on the Avatar Studios side of things, just in terms of like, I guess we're in for a little bit of a rough patch here in terms of like, when is the next update on any of this stuff actually going to come out? This is where I think the real delay to the movie, it's probably going to be most felt, is that I think the rest of this year and the early months of next year might be rough if like publishing can't announce anything to fill in the gaps. Like, okay, Awakening of Roku in December, great. But unless they get those comics out in like February, March, April, May-ish, we might be in a rough spot before we finally hit the marketing kind of cycle for the movie. I hope that they have it actually planned out really well. But either way, the idea is that the cons next year should be incredible. SDCC is going to be probably absolutely massive. New York Comic Con next year is going to be weird because it's basically the first day of the convention is the day before the movie comes out, and then it'll obviously continue into launch day for the movie and onwards, which is going to be a very unique situation in terms of what they talk about and what they do there. I don't even know. It'll be interesting, but it's a major kind of thing, New York Comic Con next year, I guess. So that's the Avatar Studios kind of disappointment kind of out of the way. Let's actually get into what they did announce. So the first thing they announced is this. Avatar Chibi Minis, basically the first of these shorts, is now out on the Avatar The Last Airbender official YouTube channel. Now note, this is not the Avatar Legends YouTube channel, this is the one that's actually called Avatar The Last Airbender. It's the second official channel. I have it linked below. So yeah, Chibi Minis was announced basically back in February. It was one of these things, one of the kind of bullet points on the anniversary list of things that's going to happen on the YouTube channels, alongside like the Roblox series, which is already out. No one really cares about it. This one, at least, they highlighted that I guess it would be animated. It would have new animated stuff. It'd be based on the series, of course, but it's new. And as you can see here, yeah, this is new. This is a just under 3-minute short, clearly referencing the first episode of Avatar. I'm not going to play it in full here. Again, watch it below. I'll just kind of skim through it here, but you can sort of see the idea of some of the animation. It's not kind of crazy animated, but it looks kind of clean. The characters are all done well in the kind of classic Avatar Chibi style. And they kind of just go through this kind of slightly alternate universe of Chibi version of the first episode, where Aang wakes up from the ice. They go kind of otter penguin racing, of course. And you have that stuff. Then they just do it in the over-the-top Chibi style with some funny stuff kind of added in, including Zuko spotting Aang and joining the otter penguin racing. It's a fun little thing. I don't think it's going to blow you away with its kind of writing or anything like that, but it is Chibi stuff done right because it's doing some over-the-top stuff and the right way to do a Chibi kind of retelling of an episode in my mind. So these should be fun to keep an eye on the channel to see when they release more of them. I don't think we really have too much of an idea for like exactly kind of how many of them there are going to be. Let me just actually check the anniversary press release to see if they said that. Okay, so yeah, from the original press release, this is where we first heard about it. It's 10 episodes and based on classic scenes from Avatar and humorous spin-off comics. I'm not sure what the spin-off comics thing necessarily is. Does that mean that we're going to maybe do some of the stuff from the comics in Chibi format? I'm not really sure. Maybe there just might be some slightly different formatted stuff going on. But yeah, this is nice. It's nothing huge, but it is some of these kind of like extra ancillary media that Avatar Studios is doing. Just to be like, hey, we got some new Avatar animation here. It's shorts. It's more or less an adaptation to a certain degree of stuff that we already have. But it's fun and something to keep an eye on. I don't think it says exactly when they're coming out, but I'm going to guess they'll probably try to do one a week for 10 weeks. And that gets us into like the early part of next year. That could be somewhat interesting. One to keep an eye on, of course. And I'll do my best to kind of highlight when they do actually release. But for the rest of the video, we're going to talk about what's ultimately the main announcement from this panel, and that was this. Avatar Legends: The Fighting Game. I suppose I'll go to the official Twitter account here. We'll cover all this stuff here. But yeah, the fighting game lives. We thought that this thing was cancelled and it seems to be back. Now there seems to be a bit of a story behind this. I'm not sure if we know the full details exactly. I'm kind of piecing some stuff together about this that I'm not entirely sure if it's correct. But let's go through this just before we get into kind of going through like the trailer and stuff like that. So, originally, this is where we heard about it, I think. IGN revealed back in early 2024 that, hey, Avatar is going to be getting a multiplayer fighting game, and it's going to be done by Maximum Entertainment. It was planned to be released in 2025 with an open beta and stuff like that. They talked about this game on the kind of special video game episode of the podcast when like they basically also revealed the Ice Wars game. And we didn't hear too much about it. We didn't see any visuals. What then happened was that apparently this game was cancelled by Maximum Entertainment. The publisher, Maximum Entertainment or developer, put up their Q3 earnings report, which is this document here. And if you scroll down to operating expenses, you can see this section here. Of the 13.2 million euro write-down amount, 9 million euro cancelled titles, including Mudfest, Project Velos, and Avatar: The Last Airbender. And the only Avatar game we knew Maximum Entertainment was working on was the fighting game. So this was cancelled titles, Avatar, fighting game. It's been cancelled. We're not going to hear anything about it. And then they announced it again today at the panel, and everything seems to point to the fact that this is the same game. Because I think it's very difficult to make the point that there were two separate Avatar fighting games that sound very similar to each other. One got cancelled and then a whole separate one is actually going ahead when they both seemed like exactly the same in scope. I think the final piece of the puzzle is when you look up the current developer of this, and that is Gameplay Group International. Let me just highlight this right at the end. You can see here, Gameplay Group International, Inc. And apparently, the idea of this developer or group is that they revive games that have been cancelled. So this explains why it's not under Maximum Entertainment anymore, because it was cancelled by them, but Gameplay Group has stepped up to take over this project so that it actually happens. And I think that makes a lot of sense. I will hesitate to maybe say that's the full confirmed story, but I think you can see that the logic roughly makes sense. So we'll read the Steam description and then get into like what it looks like. So Avatar Legends, the fighting game, is a fighter rooted in the spirit of elemental mastery. Designed for both newcomers and veterans, it channels the energy of classic fighting games while breaking new ground in movement, style, and combat expression. Built with a focus on fluidity, responsiveness, and online integrity, this game invites players to discover what it truly means to fight with purpose. Hand-drawn in 2D, it is crafted to preserve the style and expressive animation of the original series. So they're saying all the right things to appeal to hardcore fighting game players, but I think also to Avatar fans. They've got the art style right, it seems. It looks really, really nice with the 2D style. I think it would have been a little bit frustrating if they went full 3D with this, but they made the right choice. Key features: 12 playable characters at launch. This definitely lines up with what was said in that kind of podcast interview where some details about this game were mentioned, which was that, yeah, they were not going to have a particularly giant roster of characters at launch, and I think 12 matches that. But many more will be released via a seasonal model, so some sort of season pass, or, you know, every couple of months a character or multiple characters will come in. We have to wait and see what way they do the kind of payment and stuff like that. Selectable support characters influence your fighting style and grant special moves. Okay, that seems cool. That's a way to include characters who you are not going to do as playable characters, but they're still there and sort of like a part of the game. So that is good. Unique flow system with movement-centric gameplay. That seems to very much be what people want these days in these games, is like movement tech to show your skill over other players, which is cool. Single-player campaign with original narrative. Now, I don't know how this is going to work, because you'll note that Korra is in the trailer. So are they just going to maybe like be like, okay, Korra and maybe one or two other characters aside, the game is primarily ATLA, so it's an ATLA story that we're trying to make canon? Or are they going more for this is a Realms Collide style non-canon story, but we've attempted to do something with it to create like an actual fighting tournament type situation? Once they try to do something here, I'm okay with this, because they are going to have to deal with the idea of like, how is 12-year-old Aang interacting with 17-year-old Korra? Not in any sort of like a past life situation. Those are the sort of questions they're going to need to answer here, potentially. But I do appreciate with this game, which I'm not sure we were maybe expecting anything super high-end from it, but it is cool that it is going to have a single-player campaign with apparently an attempt at a story. Combo trials, gallery mode, and best-in-class netcode and cross-play. More features and mechanics will be announced soon. And also, Avatar Legends, the fighting game, is a working title. They're going to figure out what to call it later on. I'd be okay if they just went with like Avatar Legends, like Fighters or something like that. I think, obviously, having the fighting game in your title is a little bit, I think, not great. They definitely need to change that. I don't really mind the idea of just keeping it like safe and like Avatar Legends, the name of the franchise, and Fighters, or just a word that represents kind of what you're doing. I think that's perfectly fine. Other information here would be that, yeah, it's coming to PS4, PS5, Xbox Series X and S, Switch 2, but not Switch 1, and Steam. So that seems perfectly fine. They're trying to get it out on basically everything, but maybe the original Switch might struggle to run it. That seems perfectly fine. And yeah, it's coming out in summer 2026. So that's probably like, what, June, July, August-ish. Which makes sense. That's a nice place to do it. They're probably going to be right in the middle of like Avatar Studios marketing there, where like this will come out. It'd be incredible if you could maybe have one of the adult versions of Team Avatar be one of the characters in this game, as a little bit of a collaboration type thing, kind of like Sonic Racing Cross Worlds is going to be doing. And yeah, it's coming out only a few months before the movie. The trailer might be out in or around the release of the game, so this seems like it's actually positioned relatively well. Myself, fighting games are not really my favorite genre of games. I'm definitely going to give this a try because it is a full-on Avatar game, and I definitely want to try it out because it does look interesting. So let's get into just going through the trailer here. So let's do our best to kind of highlight this without maybe showing kind of too much here. But you can see the kind of 2D approach there, Aang and Korra, which I appreciate that that's kind of what they're kind of headlining with. They're really emphasizing it's not just ATLA. Korra is in here. And Korra is actually like the secondary, like main character, it seems like, in the game. So it's all about, after this, do they support Korra and her era with how many other characters in, like, say, the starting roster are going to be Korra characters? That's the big question. There's the logo, again, temporary. It'll probably be changed to something else. Some nice animation here to support kind of what's going on. That's cool. And then, yeah, we get into some of the actual kind of like gameplay here. So you can see Appa in the background here. I'm guessing Aang has chosen Appa as his support character here. And this changes Aang's skills in some ways. The way they say it is that it influences the fighting style and grants special moves. So, okay, your special character, there's some sort of team up, maybe special move thing going on here. That's cool. So you can maybe see the idea of, like, as Aang does air moves, Appa reacts. So maybe Appa boosts airbenders might be an aspect of what they're doing here. But you can see the animations seem kind of nice. There's Zuko dancing dragon. And then you can see as Zuko does attacks, June and Nyla, in this case, laugh in the background here. So that's interesting. Here's Korra. Always cool to see Korra involved in this stuff. And you can see May is also a support character. Now I wonder, is that kind of stuff like, say, does May being a support character mean we would never get her as an actual playable character or not? Kind of interesting. Northern Air Temple seems to be the stage that they're actually fighting on. And by the looks of things, they're not doing anything particularly fancy with the stages in terms of, like, interactable stuff, but we'll see how that goes in practice. So yeah, you can see there's some cool stuff going on here with the combos. And then yeah, they kind of skim through some of the characters that I guess are also going to be included here. So Toph's going to be in the game, Sokka's going to be here, Azula is going to be here, and Katara is going to be here. One thing immediately I would really want to know is character outfits. That's definitely something that they probably should be adding in, just to avoid situations where you have to make, like, say, Book 3 Katara a completely different character to Book 1 Katara or Book 2 Katara. It'd be much nicer if they could just, like, you could, like, unlock, like, okay, Book 1 Katara, but you unlock her Book 2 outfit, her Book 3 outfit, and the same for, like, Aang and Zuko if you want to play as them differently. There's maybe one or two characters where it might be a good idea to maybe just have an alternate version of them. Like, for instance, if they do introduce, say, like, adult Aang from the movie as a character, he should probably be different than 12-year-old Aang, that sort of idea. Yeah, coming summer 2026, then they just show some animation of kind of like what looks to be kind of special move type stuff going on here with the effects. Zuko kind of combo going off here. Avatar State Korra. And Avatar State Aang. And then, yeah, wishlist now on Steam, and there's the different stuff you can see. So, yeah, they have social media on X, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. So, actually, let me just check their YouTube. I'm assuming the only thing they have up right now is this trailer, but I'll just check it just in case. Okay, so yeah, they only have the same trailer up right now. I guess they'll, now that they're public and live, they'll probably have more on that. So yeah, that's available if you are so interested. But, so yeah, that is it for the panel, basically. There's nothing really else to add to that. It is cool that we have this game. I'm not sure how, like, crazy hyped I am for it, but it is cool to have, like, a proper full Avatar game, and one that's actually going to come out somewhat soon compared to, say, like, Ice Wars, which is probably still maybe like 3+ years away. So this actually is pretty interesting to keep an eye on, like, when they do the character reveals, especially if there are, like, some interesting Korra characters that they also add into this, which I suppose let's quickly maybe go over that. They mentioned there are 12 playable characters at launch. In the trailer we saw Aang, Korra, Zuko, And then they went through 4 other characters. So they showed Toph, Sokka, Azula, and Katara. So that's 7 characters, 6 of which are from ATLA, 1 is from Legend of Korra. Now, is it going to be 6 and 6? I'd be surprised if they did it that way. So I think it is going to skew Avatar over Korra, but it probably should be like at least 8-4, 8 ATLA characters for Korra. Korra feels a little bit more obvious where, like, okay, you do Korra. Tenzin feels like a decent pick if you want a different airbender character that's not just Aang. And you're going to be maybe stretched for airbender characters. Maybe they choose Milo or Jinora just to create something even more different. Will they do Mako or Bolin, or maybe a Sami? There's options here, depending if you want to go down the non-bender road or have a different style of earth or firebender. Then, of course, Korra also opens the door to, like, say, a lot of the Korra villains. Characters like Lin, Su, like metal benders and so on, could be interesting. Zahir, Pali, all these other characters like Unalaq are kind of fascinating to see if they would add them in either at launch or later, because there's definitely some very cool stuff you can do there. They seem to be doing most of the HLA characters, so you'd be thinking like, okay, the likes of Suki probably should be added in as a non-bender fighter. Jet, I think, was actually one of the characters they kind of talked about maybe wanting to do in that interview from a while back. So Jet feels like a really obvious kind of sword-focused character that they could do. Iroh probably feels like one of the remaining kind of like big ones. Ty Lee, of course. Ozai, Zhao, Boomy, Paku. You know, you're getting through the obvious kind of like benders, obvious fighter characters. And then because it's Avatar Legends, I then sort of wonder, will they dive into the novels? Will they give us some past avatars like Kyoshi, Karuk, Yang Chen? Will they give us novel characters like Rangi or Kavik or anyone like that? I think that would be really cool. A lot depends on, okay, only 12 characters at launch. Whereas a lot of Avatar fans immediately probably fill that lineup up to about like 30 something already, and they're probably quickly getting out of scope in terms of can they actually add in many more. I doubt they're going to go that crazy in depth, but I'd like to know from maybe some of the things they end up saying if they do have plans to properly take use of Avatar Legends overall and do more than just ATLA and Korra. I think that would be interesting because, you know, it's a way to create a particularly unique aspect of your game, is like being one of the first games to actually utilize novel characters or comic characters. That could be kind of cool. So we're gonna wrap it up there. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts are on New York Comic Con, I guess, overall. I think it's fair to say it was pretty much a dud. I think all 3 panels failed to deliver in the ways I think reasonably expected them to. The merchandise panel didn't show us the obvious next wave of like Jazzwares stuff, didn't show us new Magic cards. That was disappointing. The publishing panel, I still would probably maintain, is the most disappointing thing of the overall weekend, because Dark Horse just missed hard and make me very worried about them for next year. Maybe I'm over exaggerating that, but they really didn't get it right in my mind. But even then, Abrams didn't announce a new book, and that makes me like go, is something wrong? And then this one here, obviously it's more on like, hey Paramount, if you aren't going to let them show off anything, what are you doing? When are we going to find out about this? I have some questions. I appreciate that they announced the video game. That's actually a somewhat notable announcement. But again, a lot depends on, are you excited for fighting games? That's a big thing. The Chibi Shorts is cool to have, but I don't think they're going to be hugely notable pieces of content. But it is cool that they're here. They didn't forget about them, and that's the important part. So, in the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on the weekend overall, and specifically here, the 20th anniversary panel. How disappointed are you by what happened here, and when do you actually think they're going to begin talking about the movie, given that they didn't do it here? Really want to know your thoughts on that. But yeah, tell me what your thoughts are on the fighting game. That's probably the big one. But yeah, that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.